Hi, in today's video, you are going to literally learn how to make $1 million on Fiverr. My guest, Ron Desi, is a perfect example of someone who has started a freelance gig and made a full-time business out of it for himself. The only thing is that you are going to see only Ron in the video because something malfunctioned with my video and for some reason I was not able to save it. Just bear with me and Ron as we step by step walk you through all of the nitty-gritty details that you need to know in order to start your freelance gig on Fiverr. Hi Ron, great to have you here in Performance Digital Podcast. I've been super eager to talk with you. Why don't you start with introducing yourself and telling us a bit more about what is that you do?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Olaf. I've been looking forward to it, so it's great to be on the podcast with you. So basically, I would say 30,000 foot level. My career started off I was an IT consultant for a long time. Then I moved into academia. I was actually an MBA director for a while, but then I transitioned while I was in that role as a director, working a full-time job, the typical cubicle office kind of environment. I was working on Fiverr part-time. And then in 2015, I decided to make the leap from, doing Fiverr part-time to going full-time. So ever since 2015, it's almost been 10 years I've been doing Fiverr full-time. It's been my livelihood. And so I'm just happy to be here and happy to share everything I can with your audience.
Great. Super interesting, because I've never had this moment in my life in which I was, let's say, proactively engaged in freelance. So that's super interesting to have you and to hear more from someone like you, because you must be like one of the top 10 or 20 people on Fiverr. It's crazy how many reviews you've got. I've seen your profile.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm one of the, as they say, OG. I think that OG stands for, my wife told me it stands for original gangster, which I have no idea where that comes from.
Yeah, I said it.
So I'm one of the OGs. Back in 2012 is when I actually started Fiverr, and I started doing just spokesperson videos. That's what I started doing. Someone who I worked with said, you're pretty good speaking in front of an audience. Have you ever thought about doing this like on camera? And I was like, no, I haven't. And then I bumped into Fiverr and saw at the time there were just maybe 10 people doing spokesperson videos, if that. And so I just started doing it, and then it just kind of grew from there. So yeah, I've been on it for a long time. Despite having that benefit of being on the platform for a long time, I think anyone can get on Fiverr, even now, even despite the fact that it's super competitive and people say it's super saturated. There's still a great time to get on Fiverr, hang your shingle, as they say, and then start your freelancing journey on Fiverr.
Yeah, so how it all got started with you, because you said that you came across on Fiverr, so it's just a random conversation about, speaking on camera, setting up a profile or deliberately designing your profile, or why even Fiverr,
Sure.
There were more portals back in the day. For sure, Upwork is one of the popular ones that I know, but all got started. If you can tell it in more detail, that would be great.
Definitely. So what I started is, like I mentioned, someone said, do you want to do it on camera? In fact, to back up a little bit, while I was MBA director, what I started doing were YouTube videos for our students. So students would have questions about for my GMAT score, what's the minimum GMAT score I'd need? So I have these little FAQ videos I do, and that's when the person said, have you ever thought about this? And then one little other tidbit is there was this other Fiverr seller who I knew on Facebook for some reason, and he sold on Fiverr, and he was almost like one of the original ambassadors of Fiverr. And what he did was he said, you should go ahead, and he hired me. He was actually my first gig. He said, go ahead, set up a gig. And at the time I didn't even know what it was, kind of thing. So I went ahead, found Fiverr, set up my gig. At the time I had a really cheap camera, a cheap microphone. In fact, I think I had to buy a microphone from Amazon. So you're talking about really low tech, low quality, but I did it. And then once I had my gig up and running, he purchased from me. And then back then, everything was $5. Remember that? It was, I'll do this for $5. I'll do this for $5. And so I thought to myself, I can't be doing all these videos for $5. Didn't seem worth it. But luckily, what you could do is you could say, for 50 words, I'll do $5 for 50 words. So if your script was 200 words, it would be, quick math would be 20 bucks.
20 bucks
kind of thing. So that's kind of how I got started. Looking back on some of the videos, it's really embarrassing because the quality's horrible. I'm horrible, but like anything else, you just grow into it. And as time went on, just like any business, as I continued that freelancer journey, I got better equipment. I got better. I started investing in myself with learning a little bit better about how to present on camera, diction, and how to warm up and those kinds of things. So that's kind of the humble beginning of it. And then now I'm right here today. And you also mentioned like the other platforms. So at the time, Fiverr was the only one I knew about. Once I started getting some sales, I would say probably after like 3 or 4 months, I thought, oh, here's this thing called freelancer.com. And then here's this other platform. I tried those other platforms, but the one thing I don't like about those other platforms, and the same is true today for Upwork, is that Fiverr, you just put yourself out there and people come to you. That's it. You don't have to go out there and market. No one's posting job postings for 20 people to compete.
Oh, yeah.
Freelancer.com at the time, Upwork, and all those other ones, and it's still true today. Someone like a business will say, I need a video spokesperson for this project. And then you'll have 50 video spokespeople competing. And I did it. It was over competitive and it was a lot of work for very little payback versus on Fiverr. You know, I just put my stuff out there. Once you know how to optimize your profile, get a good video and stuff we can talk about later, people just come to you. And that's what I like about it. It's really kind of a passive type, as passive as you want it to be. You could market yourself, etc. But for the most part, it's passive.
Yeah, so this is, you could compare it to be in sort of my realm of things. So B2B marketing. You have actually, thanks to your Fiverr profile, built an incoming source of leads. So you have an inbound channel with businesses coming to you because you have a brand there and you have, you know, reviews and all of the stuff that is actually also important on websites and landing pages and anywhere you go. Actually, if someone, you know, wants to work with you, they will probably do some due diligence or research about, you know, what is that you do? Is it, you know, what kind of quality you are delivering, what kind of person you are, and so on and so forth. So that's super interesting. What is the best, absolutely the best thing that I've heard from you, at least up until this moment in conversation, was I have started, and although the quality right now, I look at it and I'm like embarrassed and so on, you've started and you kept on doing that. And I think this is something that nowadays people just forget about, that you will not be the super duper influencer kind of a person overnight. You need to have a team of people, you need to learn some skills, improve your craftsmanship and so on and so forth. So that's super inspiring that you have started with mediocre equipment and so on, and gradually you have leveled up your game and it got you to where you are right now. So you said about the first gig, how the profile sort of improvements happen. So what actually happened over time that made you switch from this being a side gig to this being an actual job or business?
Sure. So basically what I did was I saw Fiverr in the beginning as and hopefully this is what the best way to answer the question. If it's not, you can back up and ask me again. But back in the day, I looked at Fiverr as kind of a way to make some extra money, to pay down some debt, to maybe go on a trip here and there. I really didn't take it seriously. And I started taking it seriously, to be honest with you, is when it was tax time. And I realized that I was making quite a bit of money through this thing called Fiverr. And my taxes were up here. I mean, my income from Fiverr was up here, but the amount of taxes I paid were down here. So there's a big gap. And so I guess that was when I was realizing that, you know, I probably should be taking this a little bit more seriously. And if I did, I could probably grow it. And so I started taking it more seriously. That's when I started, you know, putting more effort into the equipment and investing in myself and that kind of thing. And I was still working full time at the time. So I would finish a full day's work. I would come home, sit down, I'd prepare my scripts. I would go ahead and do all of that. I'd get in front of the camera and I'd go ahead and present, you know, do my stuff. And then afterwards, I had to go and do the editing. And you know how it is. If anyone out there has a side hustle, it's a grind. You got to work your day job, grind, all that kind of stuff. So, and then what happened was I really wanted to be on my own. I kind of had this entrepreneurial, I guess, instinct in me since I was a kid. And one of the things about Fiverr, and I want to stress this to your audience, is that it's a great way for an entrepreneur who's doesn't want to take all the risks, but wants to have that entrepreneurial lifestyle, because that wasn't me. I was pretty risk averse. Fiverr allowed me to do that. And when it was ready to make the jump, it was still scary because health insurance in the United States, we have to buy our own health insurance and that kind of thing. So all these other things. So it's still scary, but having Fiverr allowed me to slowly build up my confidence, slowly build up my nest egg, so to speak, of money, so I could
improve your skill set,
exactly,
learn stuff about business.
Exactly.
And also, I think what you've mentioned, you've learned the lifestyle of entrepreneur, because you can have freedom on one hand, but then you said grind, right? Because after hours, you had to, put in the work. On the weekends, you probably had to, finish up a gig because there was a deadline coming and so on. And these are very entrepreneurial things in essence. It's not like managing hundreds of people and sitting at a desk and smoking a cigar like a lot of people think.
Yeah, and it's the perfect, not the perfect, but it's the freelance lifestyle. When you think about what it is to be a freelancer, especially if you're doing it part-time in the beginning, you're kind of sharpening your entrepreneurial chops, so to speak. You're honing them in. So when it was time for me to make the jump, I felt that I was ready, not only monetarily, but also from a confidence standpoint, from a business standpoint. And I'm still learning today.
Yeah, and mentally. And mentally.
And that was a big one.
You have certain...
Exactly. And I do want to say, I know I'm saying that I'm a spokesperson, and that's just what I do. Whether you're a copywriter, whether you're a graphic designer, you develop WordPress sites, you're a coder, whatever, is a platform for everyone. And I think even today, even despite all the competition and what you hear, it's still a platform that's ripe for anyone. It just happens to be, that's what I do on Fiverr.
So what is also interesting for me is that you have more than 10,000 reviews. Is that correct?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's about 10,000 reviews.
Yeah. So I don't know what's the average per year or per month, but it's a lot. So you've clearly put in the work. But what I'm wondering about is that what helped you to get some of these deals? So maybe my question should be like, what are your, let's say, 3, maybe 5 advices or recommendations for someone who's starting Fiverr? What is that you should do in order to get those reviews? Because I imagine that a lot of people would rank by reviews or the amount of reviews or average rating and then choose to go.
Sure. So I'll break this down in a few ways. And if you have any questions along the way, just stop me. So I would say for anyone just starting out, the very first thing you have to do, and I know this is stated through everywhere on YouTube, podcasts, business books, is you have to find your niche, like exactly what services you're going to provide. And Fiverr, they call that a gig. Your service is basically a gig kind of thing. So my gig is being a spokesperson. So, what is it that you're going to do? And I won't go into all the ways to figure that out, but if you have a talent that if you work for an advertising agency and you run Facebook ads, maybe you could run Facebook ads as a service on Fiverr. So figure out what you want to do, but also make sure it's something you're going to love, because like anything else, if you're not going to like it, it becomes just as tedious as a full-time job that you hate. So you don't want that. So I would say no.
Or even worse, because you have to do this after hours. So you are old to do this.
It's sort of like, or you'll get those bad reviews, like you said. So find your niche and make sure it's something you love. Then I would say the most important thing is making sure that when you set up your profile, and I ask a lot, because I like helping new Fiverr sellers. It's one of the things I love doing. And when I'm helping them, one of the things they say is, before I met you, so to speak, I wish I had something that guided me through the setup process, because Fiverr, the setup is super easy, but the problem is if you don't do it correctly, you won't be found in search. People will read your description. They might get turned off by it. They may not be interested in what you have to say compared to your competitors. So you really have to look at, what you want to do and then create your profile appropriately. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to look at some of your competitors and see what they're doing. Don't copy them, but seeing what works. If you read a competitor's profile, what is it about their images, their video, because every person who sells can have an intro video. So what is it about their video? What is it about their description, their FAQs? Look at their deliverables. What is all these things? And then kind of, ethically copy, so to speak, what they're doing for your own gigs. And then I would say,
Yeah, observe what's work.
Exactly. Be a student of what works. And then, as I say, you duplicate it, but not copy, if that makes sense. So, and then I would say the next thing, and just as kind of the third point, is Fiverr, as you mentioned, is all about the reviews, getting reviews. It's about keeping customers happy. You're only going to get good reviews is if you keep customers happy. And that's the way to do it. And Fiverr just changed, completely modified, and I would say kind of revolutionized their ratings platform. So no longer is it 5 stars. It's probably too long of a description to talk about it here, but they completely revamped it. And what I've noticed is it's making sellers become more focused on the customer. And I think that that's really, really key, is that if you don't focus on the customer service, providing customer service, you're going to get bad reviews, and then people are going to go elsewhere. So I would say those are the 3 things quickly. If you're going to get started out, those are the things that you have to consider.
That's super interesting. What about, because a lot of people that are watching might be thinking like, okay, I would start a freelance gig or a side right now, but I cannot do this. It's too late. And a lot of times people think that an industry is too saturated, or there has already been a person doing this or doing that, and you could always say that, but somehow, I don't know, new fast food chains emerged over the years. Tesla has managed to find quite a decent car industry, and a lot of things can happen in order to revolutionize the market or to do some things. So I think it's possible. But what would you say, or maybe you even have an experience, because you've mentioned that you helped a couple of people along their way. So maybe you have a story. You don't have to mention any names if that's not appropriate for some reason, but maybe you can share some of the journeys that were successful that could be inspirational for people that are, looking to start, too afraid to try.
Sure. Olaf, that's a great question, because here I am saying anyone can start it. It's super competitive, all these things, it's saturated. And I keep saying, but it's still a good place. So if I'm saying all those things, how is anyone supposed to break in? And one of the things that I've noticed, and today, let me just back up. Let's give you an example. I would say 5 or 10 years ago, if you were a logo designer, just as an example, you could just be a logo designer, throw your logo design out there, get a few gigs, get a few orders to start, get the ball rolling, so to speak. And eventually your sales would start to tick up and you'd be good to go. Today, and I don't know if you or your audience has heard of something called blue ocean strategy. And, it's basically...
Yeah, I've heard about it.
It's exactly what you did when you said Tesla. The automotive industry was completely saturated, highly competitive, completely saturated. The one thing that Tesla did, though, is they have a car. That's pretty much what it is. But they focused on, and I'm not an expert on Teslas, but it's focused obviously on the electric aspect of it. Plus the fact that it's high tech, it's completely app driven. I've been in a Tesla the first time, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and there's no dashboard, the one I was in. There's no dashboard. And so everything
there is only a screen. Yeah.
Only a screen. And I'm saying all this because what you have to do in Fiverr now is you can be a logo designer or a video editor. And the story I'll give you is this. I was helping a video editor, and he is in the UK. And a lot of video editors, if you go to look for a video editor on Fiverr, most of them are from non-English speaking countries, whether it's Egypt or Pakistan or India or Vietnam or wherever it might be. English isn't the first language.
Yeah, sure.
But the prices are extremely low. And so he was like, how can I compete against all these? It's impossible. So the question was, how can you offer something that's uniquely different in that area, for this instance, video editing, that is different than everybody else? Well, I told him that in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom, those are probably the most buyers come from those areas. Some people will pay the lower price despite language barriers and difficulties, that kind of thing. But I said, position yourself. You're in English, your English is your first language. You're based in the UK. There's going to be nothing lost in translation. So people who are worried about that don't have to worry about it. And I said, also look at the trends that are happening on YouTube. What are some of the trends that are happening? And the Alex Hormozi style of editing is extremely popular now. The Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone, like people look at certain people who have their videos and say, oh my God, I love the way they're edited. So yes, position yourself as your English first speaker. So that's number one. Secondly, you're going to create gigs that are in line with, I'm just making this up. I'll be your video editor in the Grant Cardone style of video editing or what have you. And when you look out there weren't many Fiverr people selling that, but the demand was extremely high because people just love it. If you go online, people who are in the video YouTube space want editors who edit in that style. So he kind of carved out for himself a niche. And even though video editing is highly competitive, extremely cheap, when it comes to the average price, he put himself not extremely high, but higher than the others. But he kind of found that little niche, and he went from a new seller to second level seller in probably about 3 or 4 months. So it didn't take him long. And this is a brand new seller. And so I just say that if you're going to get started in a niche, look at your competition and figure out what it is that you can offer.
What is that the people actually need,
exactly.
desire, or aim
exactly.
to have? What are the differentiators?
Exactly. What are some trends in the market? Like, for instance, one quick last story is, for me, to be honest, in the spokesperson realm, the green screen and white screen backgrounds, like I have my green screen right here, I'm looking at it. Those gigs are kind of going like this. They're not doing as well. People don't want something filmed on a green screen. And I noticed my sales going down. And I was looking at Fiverr and I noticed that I was doing competitive research and noticed that there were a few, not a lot, but a few sellers who were offering what I call YouTube studios. Ones with kind of like what you see in back of me now. It's kind of like the nicely lit background and the colored lights and all these other kinds of things. Basically, they were offering real, authentic studio background. So I thought, why don't I do that? So I did that. And within the first month, I had $5,000 worth of orders in that one gig alone. It wasn't that the spokesperson category was going down overall. It's just that, like anything else, I had to retool and figure out what it was people wanted. What did customers want? What were the trends that were changing? And then adapt to that, because no one wants to be the next blockbuster video.
Sure, and probably the next trend will emerge in a couple of months
Exactly.
or a couple of years, and you will have to adapt. And this is what I always tell people. Marketing, and especially in B2B, it's not like you are finding your gold mine or the way that you can generate leads efficiently, because something that is efficient today will probably not be as efficient in 3 or 6 months from now. There are multiple reasons for that, and some of them might be customers changes in and their behavior change. There are black swan events like pandemic, or there are just trends that emerge and people expect something different branding, different colors, different call to actions. Great example is, I think, a lead magnet. A few months back, if you would have an ebook, people would kill each other for an ebook, right? And nowadays they tend to go for a challenge or a video series or something like that. But that really depends also on the type of audience that you have. There are a lot of things that you can have in order to stand out and to differentiate yourself. So that's
one of the things I would say to add to what you just said is that AI is pretty much disrupting everything. So, whether you're a marketer, a Fiverr seller, whatever, you have to look at AI and find out what it's doing in your industry and adapt accordingly. I'm helping one writer right now. His sales are plummeting because he's a script writer, and everyone is now using ChatGPT to write scripts. I can tell I'm getting about 50 to 75% more scripts written by ChatGPT. I can tell because ChatGPT scripts are terrible. He's seeing his sales fall. So what I told him was, knowing that they're terrible, you should create a gig. I don't know if he's done it yet. Create a gig saying that you'll rewrite a ChatGPT script so that it sounds better. It doesn't sound robotic. It doesn't sound dry. It doesn't sound ridiculous. And so it's about modifying to the market. And the last thing I'll say is, for instance, there are virtual spokespeople now, like Synthesia. Basically, it's a person who looks fairly real, a little uncanny valley, but you type in what you want them to say in any language and they say it. And so how am I going to figure out how to deal with that new technology? And it's no matter where you are, you're right, whether it's trends, whether it's technology, whether it's consumer behavior, consumer trends, you have to be able and willing to make those changes.
And I think that there is absolutely no reason to feel bad about it, or to, think that it's the end of the world, because this is the world that we live in and we have to adapt. And I was just speaking to my brother the other day, and we were talking about how many things have changed during our lives. I mean, like back in 70s and 80s, it was like VHS, right? So you would rent a movie and you would have VHS. And it was like throughout most of people's lifetimes, that was it. And throughout our lifetimes, it was like VHS, then it was DVD, then it was download a movie, then it was stream it, you know? What's next? A VR or something. And it's just, I don't know, like what, 20 years or something? And all of these things have happened. It's crazy. So it's going to keep on happening in our personal lives, private lives, the way we interact with one another. I remember my uncle being like, I will never have a mobile phone. Not a chance in the world. I don't need that stuff. And now he's the #1 member in the family, showing off his grandchildren and so on. So that's about it. You've mentioned that you've made a $5,000 out of a couple of gigs within like a short time span. So would you mind sharing what is the amount of money that you can actually make on Fiverr? Can you make a living, if you don't mind? What kind of living?
I'm happy to. So basically with Fiverr, I always say that if it's like anything else, if you're going to get on YouTube and start, don't expect 10,000 followers or 10,000 subscriptions within the first couple of months. Overnight. Exactly. It's like anything else. It takes a while. And if anyone who's listening knows anything about YouTube, it takes a while for the algorithm to pick you up and show you to people. It's the same with Fiverr. Now with Fiverr, I will say a little tangent is this: the moment you start getting sales, Fiverr's algorithm will start to look at that and say, okay, this person has sales. What's the rating? What's the review? And then they'll start showing you a little bit more. And Fiverr actually works to try to give new sellers a break. They try to like push them up in the search ranking so they actually have a shot. But anyway, to get back to your question about money, I would say in the beginning, you could be making within the first year, I would say $500 to $1,000 a month. That doesn't sound like a lot, but for a lot of people, $500 to $1,000 is a car payment. It's a decent side hustle. It's part of your mortgage. Imagine if you could make I'm just saying where I live, the average mortgage for an average size house might be like $1,500, or rent could be $1,500. If you can make $1,500 a month and that pays your mortgage, for many people, that's all they need. That's all they care about. It's just to pay that. I would say that as you go on, you can at some point quit your job and go full-time on Fiverr. It's going to take a while. For me, even in the early days, it took from 2012 to 2015 to make that jump. So you're talking about 3 years. Today, I'm going to be completely honest, probably would take a little longer unless certain things happen. You caught onto a trend like we talked about, or different factors came into play. It could take 5 years, 6 years, but if you are committed to it, I think that that's possible for anyone. I don't think it's a pipe dream. I don't think it's impossible. And I think that the one thing that new buyers have to realize, and why most sellers on Fiverr don't succeed, is because most quit. Just like on YouTube. They do 3 months, they do 15 videos, they're excited, and they realize that they're not getting any viewers, not getting any subscriptions, so they quit. I would say a vast majority of new sellers do exactly that. So if you could stick it out, I would say within 6 months of being on Fiverr, if you stuck it out, you'll eventually start getting to the point where you could be making $500, maybe $250 in the beginning, $500 a month, maybe $1,000 at a certain point in time. And then you keep working at it. And I truly believe you hone your craft, you get better at it, you invest in yourself and more equipment as your business grows. Don't just, if you make $4,000 a month, let's just say, it's like, wow, don't take that and go buy a car, go to vacation to Hawaii and, take some of that, have fun with it. But at the same time, invest in yourself, get better equipment, go to a training course. If you're a writer, go to a training course to get better writing skills. So I think if you look at it as a business, not just a side hustle that I do on the side, but you look at it as a business, even if you are doing it as a side hustle, that's going to pay dividends long-term over just looking at it as a hobby. So you have to have that business mindset from the beginning.
Yeah, that's great. So I would say it's not just a business. I would say it's a pretty decent scenario of having an actual MBA without paying for it, but getting paid for it.
Exactly.
So you are learning a lot of stuff about business. You are learning the interactions with customers. You are learning how to deliver on time. A lot of stuff that comes into play when you actually run a company, run a business of your own, and are getting money.
Exactly.
Just out of curiosity, so since 2012, how much would you say you made?
So right now, I looked at it yesterday, and I could look at it now, but I'm afraid I might mess up something on the on this podcast. But since 2012, a little over $900,000. So we're talking about almost $1 million. Now, almost $1 million on Fiverr, and most of that has come from 2015, because that's when I went full time, and I noticed that once I started going full time, the amount of money I was making per year on Fiverr started going up. It's almost like I put in more effort, more hours, more working with customers, trying to get out there more and working the Fiverr system, so to speak, that my revenue would go up. So even though it's, almost $1 million since 2012, most of that has come since 2015. It's been a great ride, 8 to 9 years. And, people will say, well, Fiverr take out 20%. I'm like, they take out 20%, but they do all your marketing. They do all your project management. They do all your CRM. They do everything for you that you would need to do if you started your own freelancing business. So all of that money I made, yes, I don't know if that number is gross or net, meaning is it the total amount or is it the amount minus 20%? I don't know that, but either way, it's almost $1 million, which is
a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
Especially for a lot of people who don't think that they can. It's like, you can do it. You can do it. But like for me, it's 8 or 9 years to get to that point. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, that's a great story. Amazing, absolutely amazing. So Ron, it's been a great conversation. I know you are involved in a lot of stuff we've made through the SPI membership through Platform. How we can find you? What is that you would recommend to our audience to check out, where we can find you and how we can interact with you, how we can use your great services that have been confirmed by more than 10,000 clients?
Sure. And also, just real quick, is that 10,000 or the number of people who reviewed me? As not every customer does that. I would say probably a small percentage. I would be surprised over 50, 60,000 customers. So it's a lot. But anyway, to get back to your question, I'll give you a link. My username on Fiverr is website video. If anyone wants to check out kind of how I do things over there, heck, if you need a spokesperson, you can check that out. Also, what I'm going to do is I am going to offer your audience something. One of the things that I asked new buyers is what was one of the things you struggled with? The two things they struggled with was finding a niche, and then also how to make sure I set up my profile properly. And so I thought with niche, that's one thing, but a lot of people can figure that on their own. So what I did was I created kind of a worksheet, so to speak, where it kind of walks you through every single process to make sure you're doing it correctly. So I'll give you the link so you can put it in the show notes. And if someone just clicks on that link, go over, they can download that and kind of get their Fiverr journey kickstarted. And then, I'm also going to try, when someone downloads it, I don't know if I'll have it ready yet, but I'm also trying to, within the checklist, have little videos of me talking about the best way to do it. So if I talk about in the worksheet, setting up your description, and I give some points, I also want to try to do a video, so I'm actually showing you how to do it, but that may not be ready by the time this goes live. But anyway, that's where you can find me.
Great. It was awesome. So everyone, fiverr.com/website video, in case you would like to have very experienced spokesperson speaking about your business. If you would like to see how you can set up the Fiverr for yourself, do check out the link in the description to this video. If you enjoyed the conversation, then subscribe to our channel. Ron, it was great having you here. It's such an inspirational story. You made my day.
Great. Thanks, Olaf. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.